whatever stage of your personal development journey you're at, your identity will still be something that is playing a giant key to your progress and to your success. And where you are in that journey will almost certainly dictate how much you are able to shift that identity. You've probably heard it a million times, the whole, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. If you see yourself as someone who is a victim, you are almost certainly never going to experience, or certainly you're never going to appreciate and acknowledge success that is happening to you, because it clashes with that identity. Our identity dictates the actions we take, and it also dictates the results that we are going to get. Because if you believe yourself to be someone who is unlucky in love, for example, what you are going to see in every relationship that you have is the signs that say that you are. You will find yourself in and out of relationships where you maybe feel unappreciative, or you're asking people out and they're always tearing you down. You will see so much of the evidence that proves this, and that will then dictate the way you go into those situations. So if you go into a situation of asking somebody out whilst believing that the foregone conclusion is they're just going to say no, you're not going to do it in a confident, carefree way. You're going to do it in an insecure way, maybe mumble a little bit, trip over your words, and that is almost certainly not going to lead to the outcome that you want, but it might lead to the outcome that your beliefs expect. Now, our identity gets formed really early in life, and basically it is formed by the things that other people say or suggest about us that we believe. And that we believe part is extremely important, because throughout your life, there will have been people that have said horrible things to you. There will also have been people that have said nice and uplifting things to you. But we choose to believe the negative ones more readily. Talked about negativity bias in so many videos. It's the idea that we focus more on the negative. We focus more on the things that could hurt us, simply because our brain is designed to protect us before it is designed to help us flourish. So when someone criticizes us, we see that as an opportunity to essentially try and fix that part of us so that we will save ourselves from that criticism. But when these things are said over and over again, when this is all we are facing, eventually someone will say something enough, or enough people will say something, that idea becomes part of our identity. I'm lazy. I'm not very creative. I'm unlucky. All of these things, once they become part of our identity, then start to shift those behaviors. They start to shift the expectations of our results. And we get so much confirmation in our lives that this belief, this identity is true. And the key is beginning to change this. And I say beginning to change this because this is where it really comes into, where are you on that journey? If you are right at the very beginning, if you have never challenged your identity whatsoever, when you come across a piece of content like this, it might say something like, you need to go from being a victim to being a champion. It's like, it's too much of a stretch, right? It's like you're on the bottom rung of the ladder and someone's asking you to reach for the very top. A lot of those times, that will appear impossible. And in fact, asking you to go from I'm a failure to I'm an unequivocal success, all that's going to happen is there's not going to be enough external evidence to prove it. And your body, your brain, your personality, none of these parts of you are going to accept this new reality. That's why it is absolutely important when you're at that stage to change that belief a little bit. Now, an interesting one that I like to work with is if, let's say, you've got into a victim's mindset, you believe yourself to be a victim. And look, I always throw myself under the bus on these things. I 100% believed I was a victim. I never said those words out loud. I never said I'm a victim, but I'd say things that suggested that, like bad things always happen to me, people always pick on me, that kind of stuff. And if I was to look at the early stages of my life, I had way enough evidence to prove that. You know, it's common knowledge. I was bullied in school. However, I was also just randomly assaulted on the streets, like a couple of times by gangs of lads, a couple of times by random adults just growing up. And this genuinely led me to believe I had some sort of target on my back. And when you believe that, that is just a different way of saying, I am a victim, I am a target, I am a victim. So I never actually said, I am a victim, but I had a victim's mindset. And as such, I remember the last time I was ever what I would class as victimized. It was shortly before I challenged this mindset. And it was when I'd gone back into college in my mid-20s as an adult. And I was still very overweight there. And the receptionist on that college would make comments about my weight on a regular basis. She would say things like, "Oh, are you sure you should be doing that?" when I went to the vending machine to get a bar of chocolate before class started and things like that. And she'd make comments about my weight all the time. Now, I know there's always going to be the two minds about it, that I just met a crappy person in that situation. But look, I am personally a big believer that we put out there what we are willing to accept from people coming back. And that victim's mindset allowed other people to treat me as a victim. My actions, the way I walked, the way I held myself, all of these things would have given unconscious signals to this person that it's open season, let's go. And so I'm not saying that it wasn't her fault. It was totally her fault. There's no reason that she should have to do that. I'm just a big believer that we do broadcast out there, knowingly or otherwise, what we are willing to accept from other people. And that is why I feel that after that point in my life, because it was shortly after then that I had my sort of big rebound moment and started addressing the idea of myself, that I can now look back at that timeline and say, you know, I'm not sure if no one ever tried to make a victim of me since then, but no one ever has. I can honestly, hand on heart, say that. And that was, I was 24 when that happened. So I can honestly put my hand on heart and say, no one has made me a victim since then. Now, I didn't move from victim to champion. I didn't move from victim to, strongest person in the world. I moved from victim to survivor. Now, the idea here, victim means you went through some stuff and you're probably still going to go through more stuff. Survivor means you went through some stuff and you've come out the other side of that. Doesn't necessarily always mean stronger. Doesn't necessarily always mean more well-equipped. But it comes with an unspoken rule that part of your life is done. I now consider myself a champion. But I couldn't make that jump from victim to champion on day one. My brain would have just outright rejected it and the whole thing would have been a waste. So, if you are in that level where you're stuck in that victim's mentality, maybe consider telling yourself the story of you being a survivor. Maybe even tell yourself, I'm in recovery, I'm recovering, I'm a recovering victim. Because each of these things are that next rung up on the ladder. And then what happens then is, whilst you start telling yourself, and even more importantly, believing that this is the case for you now, that you have moved into this survivor moment of your life, that you have moved into the recovery era of your life, what you will find is you start acting like a survivor and not acting like a victim. You will find that you start acting like a person who is in recovery and not like a victim. And as a result of that, those actions will lead to better results for you that then go on to confirm this new identity. Once you are there, keep reaching for that next rung. Keep reaching for the next identity up that allows you to step into the next level of your journey. For me right now, that one is I am a world-class speaker on mental health from a lived experience perspective. I don't think I've said that out loud to anyone other than my closest relatives yet, so that felt a little bit vulnerable. And look, the external environment hasn't changed to prove that yet, but my internal environment has, which means that each day I will turn up like that world-class speaker. I will put my words into the clearest way I can for you. I will show up, I will be bold, and I will be present. And over time, those results will start to align with that new identity. So whatever that new identity is for you, I want you to take the first steps into it today.